I grew up in a neighborhood where trust was more valuable than gold, but just as easily stolen. Where a man's name could open doors or slam them shut forever. And my brother, he knew that better than anyone. He was older by 3 years, sharper in some ways, but lazier in most. I was the one who got my hands dirty, who ran the corners, who carried the weight of making sure people remembered our last name with respect. But my brother, Danny, he had this charm, this snake oil smile that made people believe him even when their guts screamed not to. And me, I believed him longer than I should have. It started one night in the back room of Rico's bar, the kind of place where the jukebox eats your quarters and the smell of cheap beer mixes with blood that seeped too deep into the floorboards to ever come out. I was counting bills, thick stacks from a week of collections, when Danny came through the door like he owned the place. Leather jacket, hair slicked back, smile wide enough to hide the storm brewing behind it. "Kid," he said, even though I wasn't a kid anymore, "I need your trust." Those words froze me. In our world, asking for trust was like asking for blood. You didn't hand it out lightly. But he was my brother. My blood. We'd shared the same rat-hole apartment growing up, split sandwiches down the middle, fought the same kids in alleys. If there was anyone I was supposed to trust, it was him. So I leaned back, lit a smoke, and asked, "What's the play, Danny?" He gave me that grin, the one that always came before a mess. "It's clean, I swear. No cops, no guns, no heat. Just your name. That's all I need. You lend me your name, and in 2 weeks we're both sitting pretty." That should have been the first red flag. In this life, nothing is clean. Every deal's got dirt under its fingernails. But he knew how to weave words, how to make poison sound like honey. I flicked ash into the tray. "My name? What for?" He waved it off. "Paperwork. A lease, some accounts, maybe a license. Nothing heavy. Just so the suits see a name with a little weight behind it. Your name's got pull, mine don't. You know how it is." And damn it, he was right. My name carried fear in the right circles, respect in others. It could grease wheels without me lifting a finger. Still, something in my gut twisted. "Danny," I muttered, "my name's the only clean thing I got left." He leaned in, voice dropping low. "Exactly. That's why it works. Just trust me, brother. One time. I won't let you down." Those words, "I won't let you down," they still ring in my head. Because if I'd known what he was about to do, I would have walked out of that bar, left him sitting there in his cheap cologne and snake grin. But I didn't. I stubbed out the cigarette, slid the money into the duffel, and nodded. "Fine. You got my trust. Don't break it." He clapped my shoulder, too quick, too eager. "You won't regret this." Funny thing about regret, it doesn't hit you all at once. It creeps in, like smoke under a locked door. First it's just a smell, a hint. Then you're choking, realizing too late the whole room's on fire. The first hint came a week later. I was walking down 12th Street, the cold biting through my coat, when a black and white slowed as it passed me. The cops didn't stop, but they looked. Really looked. The kind of look that said they weren't just passing by, they were measuring me, lining me up in their sights. I told myself it was nothing. Just paranoia. But then another night, Rico's guy Marco handed me an envelope. "From the landlord," he said. "About your new property." My property. I tore it open, and there it was. My name, bold at the top of a lease agreement I'd never seen before. Some run-down warehouse near the docks. My signature scrawled at the bottom. Except I hadn't signed a damn thing. That's when the smoke started seeping in. I went to Danny's place. He opened the door with that same grin, but I saw the sweat on his forehead. "Hey, kid. Everything good?" I shoved the paper at him. "What the hell is this?" He glanced at it, too quick, like he already knew. "Oh, that. Just a little investment. Nothing to worry about." "Investment?" My voice cracked like a whip. "With my name on it? You forging my signature now?" He put his hands up, all calm. "Relax. It's a warehouse. Empty space. Couple of friends are storing things there. No big deal." I grabbed his collar, slammed him against the wall. "No big deal. You just put me in the middle of something without asking. That's my name, Danny. My name. He stared back, eyes wide but still defiant. I told you to trust me. It's gonna pay off. But in my gut, I knew. Whatever was being stored in that warehouse, it wasn't furniture or crates of fruit. It was something that could burn my whole world down. And for the first time, I saw it in his eyes. My brother wasn't asking for trust. He was stealing it. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the mattress with the lease in my hands, the paper softening from sweat and time. The signature looked like mine because it was mine, lifted off something old, probably a bail form or a pawn ticket, traced and practiced until the pen knew my name better than I did. The clock stuttered past 3, then 4, and when dawn touched the blinds, I had a plan. Find the warehouse, find who was in it, and find what part of my brother was still worth saving. The docks were a mouthful of cold metal and gull screams. The warehouse sat crooked between two newer buildings like a busted tooth. Roll-up door, keyed entry, side door with a rusted push bar. Fresh tire cuts in the grit. I circled twice. No cameras I could see, which meant there were cameras I wasn't supposed to see. I knocked on Rico's back entrance, got Marco half-dressed and grumbling. He owed me, and he knew it. By 7 we were sipping burnt coffee in a dented sedan across from my supposed property like two losers with nowhere better to be. "Tell me again why I'm freezing with you," Marco said, talking into his collar. "Because my name's on that building," I said. "And if I walk in alone, I walk out in cuffs or a box." He hummed, the sound of an engine not catching. "You talked to Danny?" "Not today," I said, which wasn't the same as no. "He's got a partner." "They always do," Marco said. "Partner's the one who counts. Brother's the hook." At 8:40 a box truck backed up to the bay. No mockings. The driver hopped out, young, nervous, too clean to belong. Another guy slid the door up from the inside. I kept still, watching, counting. Pallets rolled out, stretch-wrapped cubes, no labels. Nobody waves a gun, nobody shouts. In and out like church mice. The truck left. The bay door went down. The quiet came back. "Could be stolen electronics," Marco said. "Could be meds. Could be ghosts. Could be my funeral," I said. We waited. At 10 a black sedan with rental plates kissed the curb. Two suits climbed out. Real suits, not street costume, the kind that fit because they were measured. One of them was a tall man with a throat like a lamppost and a smile that didn't bother his eyes. He pressed the bell, got waved in, and now I felt the smoke curl under the door of my brain. Marco exhaled slow. "That one," he said, nodding at the lamppost. "I've seen his type at the card room. Not a player. The guy the players owe. Name. Goes by Finch," Marco said. "I don't think it's the name his mother gave him." Finch. It fit. Something that pecks, collects, takes pieces and flies. By noon my patience was a pane of thin glass. I popped the door, told Marco to keep the engine ready, and crossed the street. The side door had a keypad with greasy smudges. I knocked twice, then 3 long. A different set of smudges lit up, someone inside thinking I was one of them. The lock clicked. I pushed in. It smelled like cardboard and dye. On the concrete, tape lines, oil scabs, yellow chalk numbers. A man in a cap came around a stack with a clipboard and a look he'd practiced in the mirror, the bored employee who didn't care. That look snapped when he saw it was me. "Delivery," I said, and kept walking like I knew my way. He opened his mouth. I didn't let him use it. My elbow kissed the hinge of his jaw and he folded into himself, soft as laundry. I dragged him behind a pallet and moved fast. Down a short corridor there was an office. Metal desk, 2 chairs, cheap blinds. On the desk were papers. Papers with my name echoing like a chant. I picked up one, certificate of formation, some shell company with a clean name and a rotten purpose. Registered agent, a nowhere address. Managing member, me. My mouth went dry. Another paper, equipment lease for commercial printers I'd never touch. Another, a license application, rubber-stamped, fast-tracked. My name was a boat and they'd loaded it until the hull groaned. A hard drive sat in a dock, humming. A duffel half-zipped at the chair's feet showed ribbon spines of prepaid cards, new phones, blister packs of something that looked innocent until you looked too close. I didn't need a manual to imagine the trick. Crack the cards, wash the numbers through companies that weren't real, drop the dollars into bank accounts that were mine on paper, then vanish the cash into a language no detective speaks. Clean. Clean as fire. All without a single gunshot. It was almost beautiful in a rotten way, like a cathedral built from stolen bones. I took one sheet with a notary stamp, slipped it under my coat. I was turning for the hall when someone coughed, delicate as a piano key. Finch leaned in the doorway with a small smile that said he wasn't surprised to find me here. Danny stood half a step behind him, eyes glassy, hands empty. "Morning," Finch said. His voice was soft. It could cut meat. "You must be the name." "I'm the mistake," I said. He laughed once, not a joke, just a note in a ledger. "Names are valuable until they learn their price. Danny told me you'd be curious. He also told me you understood discretion. It seems he overestimated either your trust or your manners." I looked at my brother. "You told him I'd come?" Danny tried a shrug that became a wince. "I told him you wouldn't break the door. Family first, right?" "Sure," I said. "If the family isn't selling me by the pound." Finch spread his hands. "No one's selling you. We're borrowing. We pay our debts. A percentage flows your way for being who you are. Think of it like rent for your reputation." "You forged my name," I said. Finch's smile didn't twitch. "We used your name. There's a distinction, legally and spiritually. And now that you're here, we can formalize the understanding." "For how long?" "For as long as it works," Finch said. "Then the next name. But we were hoping yours would be durable." Danny stepped closer. "Kid, listen. We were drowning. This keeps us breathing. No guns, no bodies, no heat. We're ghosts." "Cops already smelled me," I said. "They watched me walk like a show dog." Finch nodded. "They sniff everyone of consequence. Attention is manageable. We have counsel. We have ladders when fire comes. You don't need to stand in the flames. And if I say no, then you say no," Finch said. "And the companies fail. Debts come due. Lenders ask why their money went into a hole with your name on the rim. Perhaps an assistant district attorney decides to practice their signature on the charge sheet. Perhaps a detective who doesn't like your haircut drags you in by that coat. It would be unpleasant. For everyone." Danny's voice went thin. "It's temporary. 2 months. We blow it out, we split, we rest. I swear to you." I stared at him. His eyes wouldn't settle. One gaze for me, another for the man behind him who held the leash. I remembered jam sandwiches and cut knuckles and a small boy hiding behind a bigger brother in an alley that smelled like rain. The memory didn't help. From the hall, the radio on somebody's belt hissed with chatter, routine, then suddenly sharp. Code numbers, street names, the firecracker crackle of urgency. Finch's head tilted. He held up a finger, listened, then turned back to me with a gracious smile. "Police just turned onto Harbor," he said. "We have 5 minutes. Less, if they run the light." Danny flinched. "I didn't call them." "No," Finch said, the word like a silk thread tugged free. "They were always coming. Names attract gravity. We would like you to leave now, Mr. Name. Through the west door. Take your sheet, take your indignation. Go. We will handle the music." "I walk," I said. "You dump this on me anyway." "I'm not a fool," Finch said pleasantly. "And neither are you. If you go now, you have a chance to decide. Stay, and someone decides for you." Sirens thinned the air, distant but carving closer. I felt the urge to run fight with the urge to slam my brother into the desk and shake the truth out of him like coins from a piggy bank. In the end, survival won. It always does in our line. I moved. Finch stepped aside, the gentleman host seeing out an uninvited guest. As I passed Danny, I said, soft, "You come to me tonight. Alone." He nodded too fast. "I will." Out the west door, into daylight that made everything uglier. I cut down the alley and across a yard full of busted pallets, vaulted a chain link, tore my coat on a barb. Sirens swelled and then broke, stopping at the warehouse like the ocean finds a cliff. I didn't look back until I slid into Marco's car and we peeled away. "You get what you needed?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, breathing glass. "I got a name for the devil." We drove in silence. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. I let it go dead. It rang again, same number, same insistence. Third time, I answered. "Hello." A woman's voice, precise, like she used tweezers for words. "Mr. Russo. Detective Vega. We need to discuss your property on Pier Street." "I don't own property," I said. She sighed like she'd rehearsed. "Then this will be short. Come in, or we come to you." I hung up. Marco whistled, low. "You're cooked." "Not yet," I said. "But the pan's on." At dusk I waited at the bench on Belmont where the streetlight's out and the bench is a confession booth. 9 o'clock. 10. 10:15. Danny came finally, shoulders hunched, hands jammed in his jacket, eyes scanning for ghosts. He sat without looking at me, like we were two strangers sharing cold. "You bring company?" I asked. He shook his head. "He's busy." "You mean he's letting the cops sniff around his show, and he's already got a plan to make me the punchline?" Danny rubbed his face. "He wants to meet you. Proper. So you feel safe." I laughed. It tasted like metal. "Set it up." "You'll come." "I'll come," I said. "And if he lies, I'll close his mouth for him." Danny nodded and stared at his shoes. "I'm sorry." "No," I said. "Save sorry for when it matters." "When will that be?" "When my name stops being useful," I said. "That's when everything you sold comes due." He swallowed and stood. "Tomorrow. 11. Kingsley Hotel, room on the top. Ask for Finch." "Tomorrow," I echoed. He walked away small, the night eating him in bites. I sat until the cold made a home in my bones. Then I stood, tucked the stolen paper deeper into my coat, and started practicing the one thing that had kept me alive this long: how to smile at a man while measuring the distance from his throat to my hand. Morning broke like a bad hangover, gray sky, wind sharp enough to cut skin. I spent it pacing my apartment, chain-smoking, staring at the paper with my name on it. Every letter felt like it weighed a pound. Russo. That name had carried me through backrooms, alleys, and payoffs. It opened doors and closed mouths. And now it was collateral, signed away by the one man who should have guarded it like his own blood. By 10:30 I was in a cab, cap pulled low. The Kingsley Hotel sat uptown, the kind of place that pretends the city's dirt doesn't reach its marble floors. Bellboys with stiff shoulders, glass revolving door, lobby smelling like lemon polish and old money. The kind of place where someone like me doesn't belong, but money makes you invisible if you carry it right. The desk clerk gave me that trained smile, too wide, too empty, when I asked for Finch. "Of course, sir," he said, like I'd said Rockefeller. A card key slid across the counter. Top floor. Room 1407. The elevator ride was too quiet. My pulse was louder than the cables. At the top, the hallway stretched long and soft-lit, carpet muffling my steps. Room 1407 waited, door plain as any other. I slid the key, heard the click, and pushed inside. The room smelled of fresh coffee and paper. Curtains drawn, lamps dim. Finch sat by the window in a tailored suit, like a banker on holiday. A spread of documents covered the table beside him, contracts, statements, even a framed certificate with my name engraved like it was carved in stone. Danny leaned on the dresser, jittering like a rabbit that knows the hawk's shadow. "Mr. Russo," Finch said, standing. His handshake was dry, strong without showing off. "Thank you for coming. Hospitality is a dying art." I didn't take the seat he offered. I stayed standing, coat heavy on my shoulders. "You wanted proper. This isn't proper, it's a setup." Finch smiled thin. "All meetings are setups, one way or another. What matters is what comes out of them." He gestured to the documents. "Your name has been productive. Our operations are streamlined, efficient. We've already cycled through 3 accounts, moved 7 figures. without a single detective knowing where the money truly rests. You should be proud. Proud, I spat. You're washing your sins in my name. If the cops connect the dots, I'm the one cooking in a cell while you're boarding a plane with clean shoes. Finch folded his hands. I expected anger. But understand, this isn't theft. It's investment. Your brother vouched for you. He said you'd understand the value of leverage. Danny flinched when my eyes cut to him. I told him we could trust you, he whispered. You told him wrong. Finch's voice stayed calm, almost soothing. Look at the math. A small percentage of these transactions are already tagged for you. Untouchable. Offshore. Numbers you can live on for the rest of your days. You earned it simply by existing. By being someone worth believing. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. And when it collapses? When the feds show up at my door with warrants and pictures of warehouses? Where's your math then? He didn't blink. Then we pivot. Another name, another structure. It never collapses, Mr. Russo. That's the beauty. It only transfers. I leaned across the table, hands on the edge, staring into his cold eyes. And you expect me to nod, smile, and be your paper ghost? Finch finally let the smile crack, showing the steel beneath. I expect you to recognize inevitability. You're in this whether you approve or not. The signatures exist. The accounts exist. The law already believes you're with us. Fighting it only ensures pain. Accepting it ensures profit. Danny finally spoke, voice shaking. Kid, please. Just let it roll. It's 2 months. We cash out. We walk away. I turned on him, rage boiling over. Walk away. From what? From a trail of forged paper with my name on it? You think the law cares about your timelines? His mouth worked, but no words came. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. Finch poured himself coffee, unhurried. I admire your fire. But fire, unchecked, only consumes itself. Think carefully. This partnership can be generous. Or it can be brief. I stared at him, then at my brother, then at the stack of documents like gravestones with my name carved deep. My fists itched to smash something, but smashing wouldn't change the ink. I grabbed one sheet, the certificate with my name, and shoved it under my coat. This conversation never happened. Finch's smile returned, slow and dangerous. Everything happens, Mr. Russo. That's the trick. I walked out without another word. The hallway felt longer, the air heavier. In the elevator mirror I caught my reflection, eyes bloodshot, jaw tight, a man being buried alive under paperwork. Back on the street, the city noise slapped me awake. Sirens in the distance. Horns, chatter, the grind of engines. Life kept moving, oblivious. I lit a smoke, hands trembling. Danny caught up a block later, panting. Kid, wait. I spun on him, grabbed his collar, slammed him into the brick. People passed, but nobody looked twice. This city's good at pretending. You sold me, I growled. My name, my life. For what? A taste of easy money. A seat at Finch's table. Tears welled in his eyes. I thought we'd be untouchable. No more running corners, no more bruises for pennies. Just clean money, flowing forever. There's no clean in this world, I hissed. Not for us. He sagged in my grip. I didn't know it'd go this far. I let him drop, disgust burning in my chest. You're either the dumbest bastard alive or the coldest. Either way, you're not my brother anymore. I left him in the alley, walking fast, smoke trailing behind me like a fuse. But no matter how far I walked, I couldn't shake the weight on my back, the feeling that Finch's shadow stretched over every block, every breath, every beat of my heart. That night, the phone rang again. Same voice. Detective Vega. Calm, certain. Mr. Russo, she said. We're past polite. Tomorrow you come in. 10 a.m. precinct. No delays. I hung up without answering. My world had narrowed to 2 choices. Sell Finch before he sold me, or burn everything down before the law lit the match. Either way, tomorrow wasn't going to end clean. They woke me up before dawn the next morning. Bright lights through thin curtains like interrogation already had a schedule. I didn't sleep. Sleep is for people who don't have men with suits and radios circling their names like sharks. I threw on clothes that could pass for anything. Coat, cap, the uniform of the invisible. My phone buzzed with unknown numbers and silent texts. Finch's people were efficient. They liked to remind you they existed. The precinct smelled like bleach and regret. Detective Vega met me before the metal detector, lean and professional, hair pulled back like she'd wired her face for business. She didn't do the soft sell. She held a manila folder like a shield and didn't bother with small talk. "Mr. Russo," she said, and said it like she'd been saying it in her mind for a while. "Sit." I sat. My hands were steady. That was skill. Practice keeping your hands from showing the tremor inside. "We have documents showing your name registered for a shell company at Pier Street. We have witness statements tying CRB Logistics to the warehouse. Witnesses who saw you on the property." She let it hang. The noose tightening is a soundless thing. "I didn't sign anything," I said. "You did, or someone did in your name," she corrected. "Either way, you benefited." She slid a photo across the table. Me, the Kingsley lobby, the reflection in the elevator. "You were meeting with a man named Finch. Care to tell me who he is?" I told her nothing. That's the honest part of this life. You can keep your mouth closed long enough to make a difference. But silence isn't always protection. Sometimes it's a sentence. Vega pushed a thin smile that threatened like a saw. "We can make this easier, Russo. Help us. Tell us about Finch. Tell us about the accounts. Help us find the money, and maybe we don't put you on the front page." Her eyes narrowed on me, testing weight. I watched her watch me, cataloging everything she didn't have. That's the dance. They offer a rope or a ladder and you decide if you take it. Back on the streets, the sun felt too honest. I walked like I was walking through molasses, each step slower than the one before. Danny wasn't at the apartment. His room looked like a ghost had taken the bed, blank wall, nothing in the drawers. The spot where he kept his lighter was empty. The duffel with the prepaid cards was gone. Whoever ran had planned it like an exit strategy, all the small things folded away. I found Marco by noon under the awning of Rico's, nursing coffee that was older than hope. He looked harder than usual, like someone who'd been sleeping with one eye open. "You find him?" Marco asked without preface. "He's missing," I said. Marco shrugged into a cigarette. "He always had the wanderlust. But Finch don't let boys wander off without a reason. He ties strings fast." "So what now?" I asked. Marco tapped the cigarette to the lip. "We don't walk into Finch. He eats guys who knock on his door. You need a plan." "What plan?" I said. "You got lawyers? Alibis? A miracle? Something like that." Marco's eyes slid down the bar where Rico leaned polishing glasses like a confessional priest. "Rico has a man. Clean. Quiet. He can find heat. But it costs." I did the math in my head. Every favor has a receipt. I had enough to buy information for now. I handed Marco cash and a message. Find where Danny slept last. By evening the city felt smaller, like the walls had moved in. My phone buzzed, a number I didn't know, voice disguised, message clipped. "Room for you if you want it. Pier 20. Midnight. Alone. No name. No signature. Finch doesn't invite, he summons." I went because I had to know if my brother was alive or a pawn already cashed out. I wore a different coat, shoes that didn't squeak, and a face I borrowed from 100 other men. Rico's man had found tracks. Danny had been here, then gone. The trail led to a strip of warehouses the city pretended it didn't own. Midnight at Pier 20 felt like a scene someone wrote with too much relish. Moonlight slashed the water into silver. Containers huddled like sleeping animals. I stayed in the shadow of a container, breath puffing white. The dock smelled like oil and old promises. Footsteps announced him, Finch, neat as a note, and another shadow with him, broad-shouldered, moving like a man who'd broken men for fun. Finch had a small smile, the kind that promises legality and delivers knives. "You came," Finch said. "You could have sung. But you came." "What do you want?" I asked. "You were a problem," Finch replied, voice smooth. "Then you were an inconvenience. Now you're an opportunity." Behind him, my brother stepped from the darkness. He'd lost weight, and a fight had traced his jawline with a bruise. His eyes were bright with fear and fever. "Danny," I said, and everything in me wanted to touch him, to pull him into my chest and never let anyone else. But this life keeps hands busy with other business. He looked at me like a boy who'd eaten something bitter and was surprised it wasn't sweet. "Kid," he said, "You're what?" I demanded. "A coward, a liar, a son of a bitch who sold my name." Danny flinched. Finch folded his hands like a host watching a show. "We had to make moves," Danny muttered. "We were running on fumes." Finch gave me a ladder. I climbed. "I thought I could pull you up." "You pulled me down," I said. Flank man moved, a shadow making a pocket of danger. Finch held up his hand. "He did what he had to." Then to me, "We can make this end with you as a gentleman, or with you as a cautionary tale. Your choice." "You staged the cops," I said, voice low. "You called the precinct." Finch's head tipped. "Detectives do their jobs. They follow leads. Sometimes those leads are gifts. You think the world is clean because you want it to be. But it isn't. People take opportunities. We create them." "So where does Danny go?" I asked. Finch looked at my brother like he was inspecting a used car. "Danny goes where we tell him. He can work off his debt. Or he can disappear. The city has many vacant apartments." Panic is a quick animal. It leaped in Danny's face. "Please. I'll do anything. I'll fix it. Tell me what to do." Finch's smile was velvet over steel. "You can work under us. Move product, manage cells, keep collections tidy. Prove you're useful. Show you're worth the credit." "You want him as muscle," I said. "Use him and toss him." "Use keeps people alive," Finch corrected. "Tossing is expensive. Wasteful. We prefer efficiency." I wanted to bite his nose off. I wanted to grab Danny and run until the city blurred into ocean. But the detective's voice echoed in my mind: "Cooperate or face charges." Finch's men watched like executioners in formal wear. "We're not done," I told Finch. "You take him, you owe me." Finch's eyes warmed, almost human. "You already owe us, Mr. Russo. That's the point." He stepped forward, close enough that I could smell cologne and copper. "But for your sake, and for the memory of your brother, keep your head low. Work with him, and you get to keep breathing." They left me on the dock with the moon and the water and the taste of salt in my mouth. Danny was led away like someone dragged by a leash. I wanted to scream until I broke glass. Instead, I listened to my heartbeat and planned. Back at Rico's the next day, I drew lines on a napkin. Names, places, times, the thin geometry of a sting. Vega wanted cooperation. Finch wanted obedience. The only thing that had stayed true in the last week was one rule: never let someone else write the end of your story. I called Rico and asked for favors, good ones, then slid into a booth with Marco and a man Rico introduced as Ellis, quiet, gray-haired, with a past stitched up in scars and smiles. Ellis looked at the napkin and then at me. "You want to play Finch at his own game?" he asked. I nodded. "I want my brother back. I want my name clean." Ellis chuckled, the sound of a man who'd heard that sentence before and didn't believe it. "Names don't get clean. They just get laundered for a new owner. But people can be bought back." "How?" Marco wanted to know. "We set a trap," Ellis said. "We make Finch think there's a bigger fish. A bank account so juicy his teeth will chatter. He will send Danny to sign, to collect, or to watch. We take the bait. Vega gets her money trail. You keep your name." It sounded simple. It sounded dangerous. It sounded like everything I had left. "That means working with the cops," I said. Ellis nodded. "Means you tell Detective Vega everything, but in a package that lets us control the timing. We move slow, we make Finch greedy, and when he reaches, we pull the net." I thought about the net and the men behind it. I thought about my brother, used as a lever. I thought about Finch's smile, cold and patient. I thought about how many men had promised they'd be there and weren't. "All right," I said finally. "We do it. But if they touch Danny, if Finch breaks him, I won't just bury him. I'll make sure Finch's name is dust." Ellis agreed. "No loose ends." We all nodded, an unholy choir promising violence in the name of family and ledger. The plan was set like a fuse. The city hummed around us, unaware, reckless, and ready. At dusk I walked past the Kingsley like a man returning a library book he'd stolen. Finch's window was dark, but I knew a storm was coming. I lit a smoke, and for the first time since this all started, I felt the tightness of something like hope. Dangerous, combustible hope. Tonight we bait. Tomorrow we see which of us is the hawk and which is the bird. We set the pieces like men setting up dominoes, slow and careful, hand steady so the fall would be loud and certain. Ellis moved like he'd been doing this since before I knew how to tie a tie. Quiet calls, borrowed favors, a bank account ghosted with enough zeros to make breath shallow in the right rooms. Marco ran errands you don't ask about. Rico put out a story that a new importer was looking for temporary storage. I sat in the middle of it all like a bruise, knowing the moment you press too hard, everything leaks. Detective Vega played her part with surgical patience. She met me in a parking garage under the city where light pooled like secrets. Her breath steamed in the cold. "You're sure about Ellis?" she asked, voice flat, trying the angle of a woman who needed guarantees. I gave her the name, the time, the bait. She nodded, and I watched something in her face unclench. Satisfaction, maybe, or the small victory of a cop who finally had a rhythm to her beats. "You understand there are risks," she said. "I understand risks," I said. "I understand that if Finch gets spooked, Danny eats the leash. But if Finch takes the bait, he'll reach. That's when you net him." She folded her arms. "We move in once Finch touches the account or moves product. No earlier. You keep your mouth shut unless we call you. And if anything happens to Danny—" Her eyes cut like a blade. She didn't finish. I knew the rest. We agreed and then signed nothing. Hands were shaken. Names were not exchanged. Contracts in our line are written in blood and breath, not paper. The bait was a company named Meridian Imports. It had a story, a legitimate front, papers filed in 3 states, a shell director in Boston who was actually Ellis's cousin, and a bank account that sung. We seeded it with fake invoices and the kind of paperwork that makes accountants nod and thieves drool. Finch caught the scent fast. Greed is a dog that remembers its way to a bone. 2 nights before the move, I found Danny in a churchyard that smelled like old failures. He'd been given a small room at the back of a boarding house. It was cleaner than the alleys, but had the same loneliness. He looked thinner, like he'd spent too much time apologizing to sleep. When he saw me, he tried a smile that cracked like old paint. "You okay?" I asked. He laughed, a sound that came out the wrong way. "I'm alive." "Alive is cheap," I said. He looked down. "Ellis says if I play it right, I get out. I do what they tell me. I keep my head down. We get money. We leave." "You keep your head down for the wrong person, and you'll be buried for the right one," I said. "Listen to me, if you see Finch get careless, run. Run and don't look back." "You'll run with me?" he asked, eyes wet with the possibility. "I can't run with you," I lied. "Not yet. I gotta finish something." He grabbed my hand like a drowning man taking a branch. "Please." I wanted to promise him the moon. Instead, I tightened my jaw and let him hold on for a minute. "Don't trust Finch," I said. "Not ever." On the night we set the trap, everything felt thinner, like the city had pulled its skin taut. We staged meetings, planted whispers. Finch's people were eager. They moved like men who'd been told they were about to win a fortune. That's the problem with greed. It makes you move loud enough to be trailed. Ellis put me in the sedan and told me to stay low. "You're the name," he said. "Act like you're meeting to cut a deal. Let them see you. Let them feel you. But don't follow unless we say." His words were cold and precise, and I memorized them like scripture. The warehouse at Pier 8 was lit like a runway. Crane lights painting long shadows. 2 vans idled like whales at the edge of the dock. Finch's lads moved with a businessman's grace. No flash, no violence, the kind of professionalism that's scarier than a pistol. My job was simple. Walk up to the dock office, speak my name loud enough that someone would take a picture, then leave. Let them think I was the front man. Let Finch reach. I approached the office, actor breathing in the right rhythm. Finch was there, of course, with his familiar easy smile. "So modest," he said when I nodded. Cameras from a distance caught us, silhouettes framed like bad art. I played my role, a man who had made himself useful. Then the account moved. We'd fed Meridian a wire, and a clean-looking bank routed the funds through a third-party processor, supposedly to mask origin, but an address trace sent a red thread right toward Finch's web. That was when the men in suits started to move. We watched from a safe distance. Finch's face changed just enough to see the hunger become something clinical. He sent Danny to sign on a receipt, a small confirmation that looked like nothing on paper but meant everything in truth. I saw Danny walk up the dock with a clipboard, legs a little too fast. He looked at me and smiled, something like relief, maybe hope. My chest cracked open at the sight. This was the moment he thought would buy him air. Ellis radioed in. Vega's team, in dress as plain clothes but armed with warrants, converged. The timing was a chord struck at the edge of a cliff. We waited. Then a figure moved like trouble. Finch himself stepped out, not to flee but to collect, swagger in his posture. He moved toward Danny, palm unclipped from his jacket. I felt my entire being tighten like a fist. And then everything sped up, a shout, a flash of lights, the slap of metal on concrete. Finch's man hit the radio like it was a flare. My heart went into a run. Vega called out, "Police! Hands where we can see them!" The men froze like snapshots. Finch's right hand, a broad-shouldered man named Klein, considered the orders like a suggestion and then barked a command. It was a seconds-long choice, the pivot between law and lawlessness. I moved without thinking. No plan survives contact with people who are good at killing. Klein lunged, Finch cursed, and Danny dropped the clipboard, hands lifting like a man surrendering to a storm. Vega's team advanced, and chaos, the kind that tastes like metal and old fears, cut in. A shot went off, sharp, wrong. Everyone ducked. Finch's men closed ranks. I heard my name somewhere in a shout, a plea, a command. I saw Danny fall against a crate, one hand to his side, a splash darkening his shirt like ink spilled fast. My breath stopped for a second that felt like an hour. "Danny!" I screamed, and the sound tore something loose inside of me I thought had been dead for years. They pulled him, Finch swearing the world into neat pieces. Vega shouted orders, trying to regain choreography. Ellis cursed, movement precise, planning the next step even as bodies trembled. I ran to my brother, crouched, and saw the hole in his side, warm and honest. He looked up at me with the same wide, scared eyes I'd seen in a child, and for a heartbeat I saw the boy who used to split sandwiches with me under a streetlight. "Kid," he breathed, voice thin, "I'm sorry." "I know," I said, which was the truest thing I'd ever said. I dug my hands under him and dragged him toward the car we'd staged, feeling the salt of blood on my fingers, feeling the whole city tilt under me. Vega's voice was roaring over the backbone of the dock. "Don't move! Hands in the air!" But for once, I listened to no orders but the one that pulsed through me. Keep him breathing. Keep him breathing at any cost. We made it to the sedan, engines and sirens blurring into a maelstrom, and drove like men escaping a drowned city. Finch watched us go, his figure cold and small under the crane lights. He flicked a hand like a man dismissing an insect. My brother coughed, a wet sound, and leaned into me. "You gonna get me out?" he asked. I looked at his face, at the way his breath trembled, and I felt the old loyalty, the thing that had guided me since we scraped gum from sidewalks as kids. "I'm not leaving you," I said. "Not now. Not ever." But as we tore away from the docks, sirens howling behind us and Finch's laughter a ghost in the rear view, I knew the cost had just gone up. Stakes weren't just numbers on a ledger anymore. They were pieces of my brother. And blood is a currency that no bank can insure. Danny bled all over the back seat, the leather soaking up his apology like it had been waiting for it. Ellis drove with the precision of a surgeon, fast, but never frantic. Marco pressed a rag to the wound, cursing in Italian under his breath like prayers disguised as obscenities. I kept my hand on Danny's chest, feeling every stutter of his breath. Each one sounded like it could be the last. We didn't go to a hospital. Hospitals ask questions, and questions bring reports, and reports are death warrants in our world. Instead, Ellis pulled into a mechanic's garage that hadn't seen a real car in years. The bay door slammed shut behind us, and a woman with steady eyes and rubber gloves was already waiting. Ellis had called ahead. Of course he had. She worked on Danny without flinching, pulling the bullet out and stitching him up like she was mending a torn shirt. I held a light while she worked, my brother half-conscious, mumbling half-formed words. "Kid, I didn't mean. I just wanted. Save it," I muttered, throat tight. "You're not dying tonight. Not before I get my answers." The woman finished, wiped her hands, and looked at me with something almost like pity. "He'll live if he rests. If he doesn't tear it open again. Keep him still." Rest wasn't in the cards. Not for him. Not for me. When Danny finally slipped into something like sleep, Ellis pulled me aside. His face was grave, calm, like a man who'd seen too many storms. "Finch knows you're baiting him now. Tonight he showed his teeth. He won't stop until one of you is buried." "I'll bury him first," I said. Ellis studied me. "That's the talk of a brother, not a strategist. You want revenge, or you want out." I didn't answer right away. The word felt hollow. There was no out. Finch's papers had my name. Vega had her file. My brother was bleeding on a cot because of me, because of him, because of both of us. "I want my name back," I said finally. "And I want Finch in the ground." Ellis nodded once, like he'd expected nothing else. Then we set the final board. "But understand this, if you go after Finch, there's no half measures. You miss, and the city swallows you whole." That night I stood outside the garage, the city humming around me, and lit a cigarette with hands that still smelled like blood. Vega called. Her voice was sharp, furious. "You blew it. Shots fired, suspects scattered, evidence compromised. Do you have any idea what kind of mess?" "I have my brother shot," I cut her off. "That's the mess I care about." She paused. Then softer, "You can still salvage this. Finch isn't untouchable. But you have to decide, are you with us or against us?" I laughed bitterly. "I'm not with anyone. I'm with my brother." "You'll end up alone," she said, and hung up. Alone. The word clung. Danny woke in the early hours, pale but lucid. He looked at me like a dog that knows it's bitten the hand that fed it. "Kid," he whispered, "you gotta walk away. Forget me. Forget Finch. Just walk." I shook my head. "You think I can walk while you're chained? That's not how blood works." Tears welled in his eyes. "I sold you. I took your name and I sold it for scraps. I don't deserve you saving me." "No," I said, lighting another cigarette just to keep my hands busy. "You don't. But you're still my brother." He cried then, quiet and broken. I looked away. By noon, Marco brought news. Finch was hosting a meet that night at the Kingsley again. Not in a hotel room this time, but in the penthouse suite. Bigger stage, bigger audience. A gathering of men who smelled like politics and perfume, men who could make charges disappear with a handshake. Finch was showing he still had control. He was daring the city to doubt him. Ellis leaned over the map spread on the workbench. "That's where we strike," he said. "Not the cops. Vega can have her cleanup crew waiting, but Finch is ours. We take him where he feels safest." "And Danny?" I asked. "He stays here," Ellis said firmly. "You want him alive, he doesn't move." I looked at my brother, weak on the cot, eyes pleading. He wanted to come. He wanted to prove something. But he couldn't even stand. I kissed his forehead like a father instead of a brother. "Stay alive," I told him. "That's your only job." He nodded, tears still shining. That night we went in dark. Me, Marco, Ellis, and 2 more men Rico trusted enough to die with. The Kingsley towered above us like a cathedral of glass and steel. We moved through service elevators, hallways that smelled of bleach and secrets. My heart beat steady, not fast. Rage can make you sloppy. I kept mine folded tight. The penthouse glowed with golden light, laughter spilling out like wine. Finch was there, of course, surrounded by men in suits too clean for their souls. He raised a glass, charming as ever, eyes scanning the room like a king counting his coins. We slipped into position, Ellis near the exit, Marco covering the side hall, me inching closer, knife tucked in my coat instead of a gun. A gun makes noise. A knife whispers. Then I saw it, Finch's smile, directed at me. He already knew. He always knew. His voice cut through the chatter. "Mr. Russo," he called, smooth as silk. "Our honored guest. Come in. No need to hide." Every head turned. The room went still. Finch's grin widened. "Did you really think I wouldn't see the strings you've been pulling?" I froze in the doorway, eyes on him, hands tight in my coat. Around me, suits shifted, jackets opened, metal glinting. "You wanted your name back," Finch said. "But your name isn't yours anymore. It's mine. I own it. I own you. And tonight, you'll finally understand that." The trap had sprung, but not the way we planned. Behind me, the service door slammed shut. Ellis swore into his radio, but the channel crackled dead. Marco shouted my name. Finch laughed, raising his glass like he was toasting my funeral. I realized then, this wasn't about money, or papers, or names. This was about breaking me in front of the city, about making me kneel where everyone could see. And as his men closed in, I swore to myself, if Finch wanted a spectacle, I'd give him one he'd never forget. The room tightened around me like a noose. Finch's men shifted their weight, jackets opening just enough to show holsters. Crystal glasses clinked, laughter died, and the music in the background felt like a funeral march. I could smell cigar smoke, cologne, and the faint copper scent of danger. Finch stood at the head of the table, calm as a priest at a pulpit. "Do you know why I like you, Russo?" he asked, voice smooth enough to slide a blade under your ribs. "Because you're stubborn. Loyal. A man who mistakes blood for virtue. It makes you predictable. And predictability is profit." I didn't answer. My eyes swept the room. 3 men near the bar, 2 by the window, 1 shadow by the door I'd come through. Ellis was pinned at the exit, Marco tense near the side hall. We were rats in a trap, and Finch was enjoying the squeak. "Your name," Finch continued, "is no longer just ink on paper. It's currency. It's leverage. Every contract, every account, every license, it sings with your signature. You are worth more to me broken than whole. So here's the question, will you break yourself, or shall I do it for you?" My hand brushed the knife in my coat. My heartbeat slowed, not sped. I thought of Danny lying on that cot, stitched together with guilt and thread. I thought of his voice. "Kid, I'm sorry." I stepped forward. "You can own paper, Finch. You can own accounts, warehouses, names. But you'll never own me." His smile cracked just enough to show teeth. Brave words for a man surrounded. He lifted a hand. "Kill him." The room erupted. Ellis dropped one of Finch's guards with a blade to the throat before the man's gun cleared leather. Marco fired from the hall, glass shattering, screams rising. I lunged forward, knife flashing, and caught the nearest suit under the ribs. He gasped, eyes wide, blood blooming down his shirt like a rose. Chaos makes order if you know how to read it. I ducked low, using the table as cover, rolling behind a chair as bullets shredded air. Finch moved back, calm even now, his shadow Klein covering him like a shield. "Russo!" Marco shouted, tossing me a pistol. I caught it, cold weight in my hand, and fired blind at the window men. One dropped, another cursed and scrambled for cover. Ellis slammed a body into the bar, smashing glass, then tore the man's gun free and emptied it into the ceiling, scattering the herd. Finch didn't flinch. He just watched, eyes gleaming, calculating. Klein advanced, a mountain in a suit, pistol steady. I dove sideways, fired twice, missed once, grazed his shoulder the second time. He barely staggered. Then the service door burst open. Danny, pale, weak, bandaged, but holding Marco's spare piece with trembling hands. He should have been in bed. Instead he stood in the doorway, eyes locked on me, voice breaking as he shouted, "Finch! This ends now." Time froze. Everyone turned. Finch's laughter filled the space like poison. "Oh, Danny," he said, shaking his head. "Still trying to be a brother, even when you're half dead." "Shut up!" Danny screamed. His hands shook so bad the gun wavered like a compass gone mad. "Put it down," Finch said softly. "You don't have the strength. You never did. That's why you sold him in the first place." Danny's face crumpled, guilt and rage fighting in his eyes. I saw his finger tighten on the trigger. I saw Klein shift his aim. I saw too much happening all at once. And then shots. 2, 3. The world cracked. Danny fired, wild, desperate. One bullet clipped Klein's jaw, spinning him sideways. But Klein's return shot hit true. Danny jerked, blood spraying the doorframe, and fell. "No!" I roared, the sound tearing out of me raw and ragged. I emptied the pistol into Klein, each shot a piece of my soul leaving my body. He fell at last, heavy and final. Finch staggered back, eyes narrowing, his composure cracking for the first time. "Fool," he hissed. "You've killed everything you had left." I dropped the empty gun, grabbed the knife again, and charged. He tried to draw, but rage makes men fast. I slammed him into the table, blade flashing, and drove it into his chest. His eyes went wide, lips parting like he wanted to give a final sermon. I twisted, close enough to whisper in his ear, "You don't own me." The light left his eyes. He slid down, dead weight in my hands. The room was chaos, blood, glass, smoke. Finch's men scattered, the survivors running like rats from fire. Ellis grabbed Marco, pulling him toward the exit. Sirens wailed outside, closer and closer. Vega's cleanup crew. I dropped beside Danny. His blood pooled warm, his breath shallow. He looked up at me, eyes wet, voice a whisper. "Kid." I tried. "Don't talk," I begged, pressing my hands against the wound. "Stay with me. Please." He coughed, blood flecking his lips. "You always carried me, even when I didn't deserve it." His hand gripped mine weakly. "Don't let my name die bad." And then his grip loosened. His eyes froze on mine. My brother was gone. For a moment the world was nothing but silence, even with sirens screaming and footsteps pounding the hall. I knelt there, covered in blood that wasn't mine, holding a body that had once been half of me. Ellis pulled at my shoulder. "We have to go." I shook him off. "No. Not without him." Marco's voice cracked. "He's gone, kid. We can't carry him and live." They dragged me, half fighting, half dead inside, out the service door as cops stormed the front. Vega saw me, saw the blood on my hands, saw the body left behind. Her eyes flicked with understanding, or maybe pity. We escaped into the night, ghosts trailing smoke. Finch was dead, Danny was gone, and my name was still poisoned. Days later, the papers called it a bust, a violent crackdown on organized fraud. Finch's empire scattered, his men scrambling for scraps. Detective Vega took the credit. My name was buried in sealed reports, redacted like it never existed. But I know better. Every time I light a cigarette, I see Danny's eyes. Every time I walk a street, I hear Finch's laugh. My name still carries weight, but not the kind that opens doors. It's the kind that makes them lock. I kept the paper with my forged signature, framed it on the wall of a room nobody visits. A reminder. Trust is the only currency in this life, and once you spend it, it's gone forever. My brother asked for my trust. Then he sold my name. And in the end, both of us paid the price.